सर्वमङ्गलमाङ्गल्यं वरेण्यं वरदं शुभं नारायणं नमस्कृत्य सर्वकर्माणि कारयेत्। विष्णु परमं पदं सदा पश्यन्ति सूरयः दिवीव चक्षुराततम्। ॐ पवित्र पवित्रो वा सर्वावस्थाङ्गतोऽपि वा यस्मरेत् पुण्डरीकाक्षं सबाह्याभ्यन्तरशुचिः। ॐ आधारशक्त्यादिभ्यो नमः। फट् नमः। ओम ओम गंगे च यमुने चैव गोदावरी सरस्वती नर्मदे सिंधु कावेरी जलेऽस्मिन् सन्निधिं कुरु। ओम द्वारदेवताभ्यो नमः। ओम द्वारदेवताभ्यो नमः। ओम ब्रह्मणे नमः। ओम वास्तुपुरुषाय नमः। ओम रक्ष रक्ष हुं फट् स्वाहा। ओम आधारशक्त्यादिभ्यो नमः। ओम अस्यासन उपवेशन मंत्रस्य मेरुपृष्ठऋषिः सुतलं छन्दः कूर्मो देवता आसनोपवेशने विनियोगः। ओम पृथ्वी त्वया धृता लोका देवी त्वं विष्णुना धृता त्वञ्च धारयमां नित्यं पवित्रं कुरु च आसनम्। ओम ह्रीं आधारशक्तये कमलासनाय नमः। ऐं गुरुभ्यो नमः। ऐं परमगुरुभ्यो नमः। ऐं परात्परगुरुभ्यो नमः। ऐं परमेष्ठिगुरुभ्यो नमः। ओम गं गणेशाय नमः। ओम ऐं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय श्रीरामकृष्णाय नमः। सौं आं हुं फट् स्वाहा। क्लीं ऐं फट्। ओम शताभिषेक हुं फट् स्वाहा। ओम पुष्पे पुष्पे महापुष्पे सुपुष्पे पुष्पसंभवे पुष्पचयावकीर्णे च हुं फट् स्वाहा। ओम फट्। ओम अस्त्राय फट्। ओम ऐं फट्। ओम पंगैं गं कंगैं कं चंगैं चं टंगैं टं तंगैं तं पंगैं पं यंगैं यं शंगैं शं रं। ओम ऐं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय श्रीरामकृष्णाय नमः। ओम दुर्गे दुर्गे रक्षिणि स्वाहा। ओम आं हुं फट् स्वाहा। ॐ भूतशृङ्गाटाचिरसुषुम्नापथेन जीव शिवं परमशिवपदे योजयामि स्वाहा। ॐ यं लिङ्गशरीरं शोषय शोषय स्वाहा। ॐ रं सङ्कोचशरीरं दह दह स्वाहा। ॐ परमशिव सुषुम्नापथेन मूलशृङ्गाटमुल्लसोल्लस ज्वल ज्वल प्रज्वल प्रज्वल सोऽहं हंस स्वाहा। ॐ आं हुं फट् स्वाहा। ॐ आं ह्रीं क्रों यं रं लं वं शं शं सं हं हंस श्रीरामकृष्णदेवतायाः प्राणा इह प्राणाः। ॐ आं ह्रीं क्रों यं रं लं वं शं शं सं हं हंस श्रीरामकृष्णदेवतायाः जीव इह स्थितः। ॐ आं ह्रीं क्रों यं रं लं वं शं शं सं हं हंस श्रीरामकृष्णदेवतायाः सर्वेन्द्रियाणि। ॐ आं ह्रीं क्रों यं रं लं वं शं शं सं हं हंस श्रीरामकृष्णदेवतायाः वाङ्मनश्चक्षुत्वक् श्रोत्रघ्राणप्राणा इहागत्य सुखं चिरं तिष्ठन्तु स्वाहा। ॐ अस्य मातृका मन्त्रस्य ब्रह्म ऋषिर्गायत्री छन्दो देवी मातृका सरस्वती देवता। हलो बीजानि स्वराशक्तयः व्यक्तं कीलकं सर्वाभीष्टसिद्धये लिपिन्यासे विनियोगः। ॐ ब्रह्मणे ऋषये नमः। ॐ गायत्री छन्दसे नमः। ॐ मातृकायै सरस्वत्यै देवतायै नमः। हलभ्यो बीजेभ्यो नमः। ॐ स्वरेभ्यो शक्तिभ्यो नमः। ॐ अव्यक्तं कीलकाय नमः। अं कं खं गं 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 अङ्गुष्ठाभ्यां नमः। ईं चं चं जं जं यं ईं तर्जनीभ्यां स्वाहा। ऊं टं टं डं ढं णं ऊं मध्यमाभ्यां वषट्। ईं तं तं दं धं नं ऐं अनामिकाभ्यां हुं। ॐ पं पं बं 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 गं कनिष्ठाभ्यां वौषट्। अं यं रं लं वं शं शं सं हंस करतलपृष्ठाभ्यामस्त्राय फट्। अं कं खं गं 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 गां हृदयाय नमः। ईं चं चं जं जं यं ईं शिरसे स्वाहा। ऊं टं टं डं ढं णं ऊं शिखायै वषट्। ईं तं तं दं धं नं ऐं कवचाय हुं। ॐ पं पं बं 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 गं नेत्रत्रयाय वौषट्। अं यं रं लं वं शं शं सं हंस करतलपृष्ठाभ्यामस्त्राय फट्। ॐ एतेभ्यो गन्धादिभ्यो नमः। ॐ एतेभ्यो गन्धादिभ्यो नमः। मेतदधिपतये देवाय विष्णवे नमः। मेतत् सम्प्रदानाय पूजनीय देवेभ्यो नमः। ॐ नमो विवस्वते ब्रह्मन् भास्वते विष्णुतेजसे जगत्सवित्रे शुचये सवित्रे कर्मदायिने। ॐ श्री सूर्याय नमः। ॐ ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वधी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि। ॐ ऐङ्गेशगन्ध श्रीगुरवे नमः। ऐङ्गिदं सचन्दनपुष्पं श्रीगुरवे नमः। ऐङ्गेशधूपम् ऐङ्गेशधूप श्रीगुरवे नमः। ऐङ्गेशदीप श्रीगुरवे नमः। ऐङ्गितं नैवेद्यम् श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ नैवेद्यं विविधं देव शर्करादिविनिर्मितं मया निवेदितं भक्त्या गृहाण परमेश्वर। ॐ ऐङ्गितं सोपकरणनैवेद्यं श्रीगुरवे निवेदयामि। ॐ ऐङ्गितं पानीयं श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ ऐं श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ गङ्गेते गन्धपुष्पे गणेशाय नमः। ॐ नमः शिवाय एते गन्धपुष्पे शिवाय नमः। ॐ एते गन्धपुष्पे श्री सूर्याय नमः। ॐ नमो नारायणाय एते गन्धपुष्पे नारायणाय नमः। ॐ ऐं एते गन्धपुष्पे सरस्वत्यै नमः। ॐ श्रीं एते गन्धपुष्पे लक्ष्मीदेव्यै नमः। ॐ ह्रीं एते गन्धपुष्पे जयदुर्गायै नमः। ॐ अग्नये नमः। ॐ आदित्यादिनवग्रहेभ्यो नमः। इन्द्रादिदशदिक्पालेभ्यो नमः। ॐ मत्स्यादिदशावतारेभ्यो नमः। ॐ काल्यादिदशमहाविद्याभ्यो नमः। ॐ सर्वेभ्यो देवेभ्यो नमः। ॐ सर्वाभ्यो देवीभ्यो नमः। ॐ अकारादिपञ्चाशद्वर्णेभ्यो नमः। ॐ प्रतिपदादितिथिभ्यो नमः। ॐ कृष्णपक्षाय नमः। ॐ शुक्लपक्षाय नमः। ॐ अमावास्यायै नमः। ॐ पूर्णिमायै नमः। ॐ ऐं बाणेश्वर शिवाय नमः। ॐ क्रीं श्री दक्षिणकालिकायै देवतायै नमः। ॐ ह्रीं पीठदेवताभ्यो नमः। ॐ ह्रीं पीठशक्तिभ्यो नमः। ॐ ऐं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय श्रीरामकृष्णाय नमः इत्यस्य मन्त्रस्य ब्रह्म ऋषेर्गायत्री छन्दः सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूप श्रीरामकृष्णो देवता ऋष्यादिन्यासे विनियोगः। ॐ ब्रह्मणे ऋषये नमः। ॐ गायत्री छन्दसे नमः। ॐ ऐं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय श्रीरामकृष्णाय नमः। ॐ अङ्गुष्ठाभ्यां नमः। रां तर्जनीभ्यां स्वाहा। मं मध्यमाभ्यां वषट्। क्रीं अनामिकाभ्यां अंष्टां कनिष्ठाभ्यां वषट्। ऐं रामकृष्ण करतलपृष्ठाभ्यामस्त्राय फट्। ॐ हृदयाय नमः। रां शिरसे स्वाहा। मं शिखायै वषट्क्रीं कवचाय हुंष्णां नेत्राभ्यां वौषट् ऐं रामकृष्ण करतलपृष्ठाभ्यामस्त्राय फट् ॐ ऐं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय श्रीरामकृष्णाय नमः ॐ हृदयकमलमध्ये राजितं निर्विकल्पं सरसदखिलभेदातीतमेकस्वरूपं प्रकृतिविकृतिशून्यं नित्यमानन्दमूर्तिं विमलपरमहंसं रामकृष्णं भजामः निरुपममतिसूक्ष्मं निष्प्रपञ्चं निरीहं गगनसदृशमीशं सर्वभूताधिवासं त्रिगुणरहितसच्चित्ब्रह्मरूपं वरेण्यं विमलपरमहंसं रामकृष्णं भजामः वितरितुमवतीर्णं ज्ञानभक्तिप्रशान्तिः प्रणयगलितचित्तं जीवदुःखासहिष्णुं धृतसहजसमाधिं चिन्मयं कोमलाङ्गं विमलपरमहंसं रामकृष्णं भजामः ॐ सहस्रशीर्षा पुरुषः सहस्राक्षः पुरुष एवेदकं सर्वं यद्भूतं यच्च भव्यं उतामृतत्वस्येषा नः यदन्येनातिरोहति एतावानस्य महिमा अतोऽज्यायादश्च पूरुषः पादोऽस्य विश्वाभूतानि त्रिपादस्या भवात् पुनः ततो विश्वं व्यक्रामत् शासनान् शनेऽभि तस्मात् विराट जायत विराजो अधिपूरुष यत्पुरुषेण हविषा देवा यज्ञमतन्वत वसन्तो अस्यासीताज्यं ग्रीष्मगित्मशरद्धविः सप्तास्यासन् परिधयः त्रिसप्तसमिधः कृताः देवा यज्ञं तन्वानाः अबध्नन् पुरुषै पशुम् ॐ इदं स्नानीयोदकं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय श्रीरामकृष्णाय नमः ॐ केशगन्ध सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय श्रीरामकृष्णाय नमः ॐ इदं सचन्दनपुष्पं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय श्रीरामकृष्णाय नमः ॐ ऐङ्गेशधूप सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय श्रीरामकृष्णाय नमः ॐ वनस्पतिरसो दिव्यो गन्धाढ्यस्सु मनोहरः आघ्रेय सर्वदेवानां धूपोऽयं प्रतिगृह्यताम् ॐ हंसाय विद्महे परमहंसाय धीमहि तन्नो हंसः प्रचोदयात् ॐ ऐङ्गेशदीप सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय श्रीरामकृष्णाय नमः ॐ ऐङ्गिदं नैवेद्यं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय श्रीरामकृष्णाय नमः पानीयं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय श्रीरामकृष्णाय नमः। ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। ॐ ऐं ह्रीं यतिगन्धपुष्पैः सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपिण्यै श्रीशारदादेव्यै नमः। ॐ ऐं यतिगन्धपुष्पे श्रीमत्स्वामी विवेकानन्दाय नमः। ॐ ऐं यतिगन्धपुष्पे श्रीमत्स्वामी ब्रह्मानन्दादि श्रीरामकृष्णपार्षदेभ्यो नमः। ॐ ऐं गेश सचन्दनपुष्पाञ्जलिः साङ्गाय सावरणाय सशक्तिकाय सपार्षदाय सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय श्रीरामकृष्णाय वौषट। ॐ निरञ्जनं नित्यम् अनन्तरूपं भक्तानुकम्पाधृतविग्रहं वै ईशावतारं परमेशमीड्यं तं रामकृष्णं शिरसा नमामः। ॐ एतत्कर्मफलं श्रीरामकृष्णार्पणमस्तु। ॐ विधिहीनं क्रियाहीनं मन्त्रहीनं यदर्चितं मया निवेदितं भक्त्या परिपूर्णं तदस्तु मे। कर्मणा मनसा वाचा त्वत्तो नान्यगतिर्मम अन्तश्चारेण भूतानां द्रष्टा त्वं परमेश्वर। ॐ जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयो श्रित्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः। जय भगवान श्री राम कृष्ण देव की जय। जय महामाई की जय। जय स्वामी जी महाराज जी की जय। Prithvi Shantirantarikshagam Shantir Dyau Shantir Disha Shantiravantara Disha Shantiragni Shantir Vayu Shantiraditya Shantish Chandrama Shantir Nakshatrani Shantirapa Shantiroshadaya Shantir Vanaspataya Shantir Gau Shantiraja Shantirashva Shantir Purusha Shantir Brahma Shantir Brahmana Shantir Shantireva Shanti Shantirme Astu Shantihi. May there be peace on earth and in the sky. May there be peace in the water and in all directions. May there be peace in the plants, in the trees, and in animals. May there be peace in the hearts of all beings. May there be peace in everyone and in everything. Sarvetra sukhinas santu, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet, sarvastaratu durgani, sarvo bhadrani pashyatu, sarvas sadbuddhimapnotu, sarvas sarvatra nandatu. May all be happy and healthy. May all see what is good, and may no one experience misery. May all overcome their obstacles and acquire good tendencies. May people everywhere find joy and fulfillment. Let us now spend some time touching the center of peace and joy in our hearts. A good way to begin the practice is to withdraw the scattered energies of the mind and bring them to rest on one point. That point can be our own breathing. Let us therefore practice breathing with awareness. As we breathe in, let us visualize that our body and mind are being filled with love, strength, and compassion. And as we breathe out, let us release all the stress, anxiety, and exhaustion in the body and mind. Let us practice this way for a while. Let us now turn our attention to the region of our heart. Although God is present everywhere and in everyone, the divine presence can be felt most clearly in our own hearts. We can meditate in any way we have been taught. To remain focused, we can take the help of a short mental prayer or a mantra or a divine name. Let us now spend some time dwelling on the presence of God in our hearts. Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Aviravirmayeti Rudrayatte Dakshinam Mukham Tenamam Pahi Nityam. May the Divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the Divine Consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. So happy Guru Purnima to everyone. As we do every year, we celebrate the birthday of Vyasa as an auspicious day, a sacred day to remember our spiritual teachers and all the mentors in our lives. In May, we had the Mother's Day. In June, we had the Father's Day. And in July, now we have the Teacher's Day. Now, clearly, this calendar wasn't arranged that way. But by a happy coincidence, that's exactly the order in which all these three, mother, father, and teacher, are mentioned in the Vedas. There is this very well-known passage which goes like this. Matridevo bhava, Pitridevo bhava, Acharya devo bhava. These are salutations to the mother, the father, and the teacher. And there is a word deva attached to each of these. Matrideva, Pitrideva. Mata is mother, Pita is father. Acharya deva. Acharya is a teacher. Now, why is the term deva attached to it? The Sanskrit deva comes from the root div, to shine. The idea is that although we might think about mother, father, teacher in terms of persons, a mother is a person, a father is a person, a teacher is a person. But in reality, all these three are really manifestations of the divine. It's really the power of God. It's the mother power that manifests in some person in a special way in our own lives, and we then look upon that person as the mother. It's the father power that manifests in a certain person in our lives, and we look upon that person as the father. And that is why, as I have often said, while our biological mother may always be seen as the mother, but in many cases, biological motherhood is not an absolute necessity. That the mother figure in our life may be someone who is not our biological mother, or a father figure in our life may be someone who is not a biological father. So that is what I meant by saying that all these three, Matrideva, Pitrideva, Acharya Deva, are not necessarily the names of particular or the way we address persons, but it's a way of acknowledging the presence of that power, the mother power, the father power, and the teacher power. We understand this because the word Deva, what it really means is that it's the power that comes from God. We are already familiar with looking upon God as the father or God as the mother. But God is also a teacher. In fact, in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, Ishvara, the Supreme Being, is referred to as, he is the teacher of all teachers. So, Purvesham api Guruhu. So, it's the power of God, and that is what Sri Ramakrishna meant when he said that Satchidananda alone is the Guru of all of us. So, on this Guru Purnima day, while we might think about the Guru power
that has entered into our life through a specific person, an instrument through which that power entered into our life. But it's also important to remember that in a real sense, that power comes directly from God. Now, it gets passed on. That power needs a tangible, visible vehicle through which it can then be transmitted to the generations. And that is how then we have this lineage. Just like we have a family lineage, our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents and so on. Similarly, there is the spiritual lineage. And many of the Upanishads, towards the end, especially these big ones, big Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka, Chandogya, and so on, they will have just the names of these different rishis, that this wisdom of this Upanishad, how has it been transmitted? And usually we don't know anything more about these sages other than just their names, but there will be this section in the Veda which says, this person sage, and this sage's guru was this, and that person guru was this. So you go back into this unbroken chain of guru-disciple relationship, and ultimately, after a few names, it all ends up generally in Vishnu or Shiva. And that reinforces what Sri Ramakrishna taught, that God alone, Satchidananda alone is the guru, and it's God's power that gets transmitted from one generation to the next. So how do I then become a part of this lineage? And one way of becoming a part of this guru-disciple lineage is by connecting oneself to some living spiritual tradition. Now, living is an important word, because there are kind of lineages which just don't go anywhere, and then we don't hear about them anymore. But what we need is a living power source. It's like after you new construction, new house is built, and you have all the fixtures ready. But in order now for the lights to shine and all the everything to work, it needs to be connected to a live power source. So similarly, in the life of a spiritual seeker, while we may have made all of the preparations, in order to now the light to shine in our heart, it must be connected to a power source. Now, books are very helpful, certainly. Swami Vivekananda mentions in his Bhakti Yoga lectures that although books are very helpful, that quickening impulse in spiritual life can come only from another living being. And that is why the Vedic tradition emphasizes the necessity of having a teacher in life. In fact, in one place the Upanishad says, only the knowledge and wisdom that is acquired from the teacher, that is in this part of being a lineage, that alone flowers into this state of enlightenment. Now, there's a lot that can be said, and I don't want to go into too much philosophy about this, but the way of connecting to a living tradition would be receiving instructions from a living guru or a teacher. And that is what usually takes the form of receiving a mantra or a method of doing meditation. Now, that instruction that we receive from our teachers may not be something radically different, something that you have never heard of before. Because now with really hundreds and thousands of books and everything available also online, we pretty much have the theory behind most things in life. So the instruction themselves are important, but it's more important that that instruction comes through this living channel who is a part of that lineage. And that is what is meant by connecting ourselves to this Guru Shishya Parampara. And what it does. So what does lightening of that lamp, illumining of that lamp inside means? It means that it starts the beginning of our spiritual life in a more focused way, in a more serious way. So what is spiritual life? Again, most of us already have a spiritual practice. Most of us have already been doing things we see as spiritual. So this question might seem redundant, but it's good now and then to visit it and just to as a form of a self-reminder that when I say I'm a spiritual seeker or that I want to lead a spiritual life, what am I really doing? What exactly I'm expected? What is expected of me in spiritual life? Now, there are clearly many different ways of answering that question. The way I find it rather straightforward is this. There is the word spirit in spiritual, correct? So, if spiritual life has to become meaningful to me, then I must have some idea, some sense about what spirit means. It's pointless to say, I don't believe in spirit, I don't believe in God, but I want to be spiritual. It just somehow that doesn't seem to make too much sense to me. I mean, nowadays there is this popular segment, a growing section among people, especially among the younger generation, who like to say that I am spiritual but not religious. And clearly it's a very meaningful phrase to those who self-identify that way. What is not often clear to me in that is that if I'm not religious at all, from where do I get any idea about who or what God is, or who or what spirit is? If I have nothing to do with religion, then what is my source to understanding, or at least having some idea about God or spirit? I can't find it in physics, I can't find it in chemistry, I can't find it in mathematics. So, being spiritual without religious is a statement that sometimes doesn't make sense to me. Because if I'm spiritual, I must have some idea of the spirit. My idea of the spirit may be very different from someone else's, but I must have some idea of it. And the way I see spiritual life is whatever notion of spirit I have, how real has it become to me? Right now, my body is very real to me. And so when it's time for lunch, I feel hungry. And that hunger is very real. And so the body is very real. This table is real. Now, when we speak about spirit, people who think that they are spiritual, even if they think they are not religious, how real has spirit become in my own life? I think that is a question as devotees, as spiritual seekers, we can ask ourselves. That all of the prayer, the japa, the meditation, the study that I do, what has really changed in me? How much, as something that did not seem so very tangible in the beginning, or so very real in the beginning, has it acquired some reality? It's like when we begin our prayer or meditation, in the beginning, whoever we are praying to, or whatever is the object of our meditation, in the beginning might still seem to be an imaginary figure, an idea, a hope, matter of faith. But after continuing with one's spiritual practices for a while, has that something which in the beginning was an imagination, if you like, or a faith or hope, has it acquired some reality? And I think spiritual progress that's a good measure to see how much progress I'm making. And what the Upanishads say is this: the more the spirit becomes real, the more shadowy this world gets. Both cannot be real at the same time. That's the thing. If you go to the classical example of the rope and the snake, as long as I'm seeing a snake in that coiled rope, I cannot be seeing the rope at the same time. I cannot see the rope and the snake at the same time. If I see the snake, I'm not seeing the rope as rope. Well, even when I'm seeing the snake, I'm actually seeing the rope, of course. But I'm not seeing it as a rope. And the more I see the rope, the snake begins to disappear. In the same way, as spiritual seekers, the more real the spirit gets in my heart, in my consciousness, in my being, the other things which seemed so vital, so real, not that they disappear altogether. Well, they will. When you attain Nirvikalpa Samadhi, everything will disappear. If you don't want them to disappear, don't be in a hurry to get a Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Because you cannot say, I want Nirvikalpa Samadhi and I also like my drink. It doesn't work. So now I think I should have a drink. I haven't gone into Samadhi yet. And so that is how I see as spiritual life. Making spirit more real. For a devotee, a sign of progress would be that God becomes more and more real in my own life. And it is our teacher, the Guru, who introduces us to spiritual life. And therefore, in the Vedanta tradition, in any auspicious undertaking, whether any new project you are starting on, or any new books that are written, usually in the classical texts, they begin with what in Sanskrit it's called Mangalacharana. Mangalacharana means it's an auspicious invocation in the beginning. And it usually begins with invoking the blessings of the Guru, Ganesha, one's own Ishta, and all the teachers. That is seeking their grace, their blessings, so that this work that I am undertaking may be successful, that I may be able to overcome the obstacles that come in the way. That's why Ganesha is often worshipped as Vigna Harta. Vigna means obstacles, one who removes obstacles. So when we do puja, as we had it in the beginning, we always worship Guru, because the Guru is one who introduces us to spiritual life, and Ganesha as the remover of obstacles. And odd as it may sound. Now, mythologically, Ganesha in Indian mythology is Shiva's son. But the descriptions of Shiva's wedding, Shiva's marriage, is the very first deity Shiva worships is Ganesha. Again, it doesn't make sense. What it does mean is that all of these deities that are worshipped in the tradition, they have an eternal aspect and a temporal or a mythological aspect. So mythologically, Ganesha is the son of Shiva. Or then you have this whole pantheon of the family of Durga. There is this Ganesha and Kartik and Lakshmi and Saraswati. It's fascinating. It's so uplifting when you read those stories and the songs and all of that. But all of these deities, they also have a transcendent eternal aspect. Anyway, so just to show that sometimes these things might seem mutually contradictory, but the notion of time and history and all of that is very different in the Eastern traditions as compared to the Western and the modern tradition, you could say. One thing that all of us who have tried and are continuing to make effort to follow the instructions of our respective teachers have found in our life, that if we continue to follow what our Guru has asked us to do, if we do it sincerely, regularly, with faith, with devotion, with perseverance, we begin to see a change occurring in our lives. Sometimes it might be so gradual that we might not notice it on a daily basis. But if we look back in like time blocks, if you look back like a year ago or 2 years ago or 5 years ago, it becomes a little bit easier to notice the progress that we are making. Sometimes we might suddenly have a special manifestation of grace in our life. And it can happen in any number of ways, so I'm not even going to try to describe it. But we suddenly feel that a grace has been given to us. And then there are so many stories, not merely in history or mythology, but even in contemporary times, when people have experienced this sudden filling of grace in the heart. And that is possible. It's not something that can happen only to some people. Potentially it can happen to any of us. In fact, Sri Ramakrishna says that the way he put it was, the breeze of God's grace, the Guru's grace, is always blowing. So it's always available. All that I need to do, in Ramakrishna's words, is to hoist our sails. If I can raise my sails in a way that I can catch that wind, then the boat of my life can move toward the goal more speedily. So the responsibility is upon us. God's grace, Guru's grace is always available. I need to do my part to be able to receive that grace first and then hold it. That's the second important thing. Because sometimes once one disciple went to Holy Mother and as many would do, said, "Mother, please shower your grace upon us." And the word in Sanskrit, in Bengali and many Indian languages for grace is kripa. And said, "Mother, please have kripa on us, have grace on us." And one day Holy Mother said, everyone says they want kripa. And what will kripa do? Kripa will come and go. You will not even know it had come. In other words, unless I make myself a fit receiver and a fit container to hold that grace, I will not benefit by that grace. So even if grace comes, I must first be able to recognize it, and having recognized it, to be able to hold it. And that needs preparation. And the best preparation we can have is to sincerely follow the teachings and instructions of these teachers and mentors we have had in our life, especially of our Guru. In fact, it is said that the best service we can offer to our Guru is to do our daily prayer, japa and meditation sincerely. There are many different ways of serving, but the best way of serving, if we do all other kinds of service and don't do this basic thing, then those other ways of serving are not don't help. But the most important thing is, whatever my Guru has asked me to do, if I can do it, I might fail, but not for lack of effort. So I must keep on trying, no matter how imperfect my doing may be, no matter how often I fail, if I continue to do it with sincerity, without getting discouraged, even if I fail, but to just kind of get up. Every time I fall, get up and start walking. Over time, then we will see that instances of failures will become progressively less. And once, as they say, the boat of my life, once it kind of enters that current which is taking me towards the destination, then the spiritual journey becomes more harmonious, more smooth. In the beginning, there may be obstacles, there may be hurdles, it might seem very tough. But sooner or later, we catch this favorable breeze, favorable wind, and then it becomes easier. So that is one thing that we all can do. On this sacred day, let us make a firm resolve that we redouble our efforts. We renew our commitment towards spiritual life. And this also may be a good day that if I am used to doing a certain amount of japa every day or practicing meditation for a certain length of time, this may be a good day to increase it a little bit and then maintain it until you find that new intensity or the new length of the practice is stabilized for some time. Keep on, hold on to that. And when you feel comfortable, then you can increase it a little bit more. Maybe at the next Guru Purnima day, or even earlier if you want. But I think that's how then we get a chance to intensify our spiritual life incrementally. Doing it just haphazardly, like meditating for 2 hours one day and half an hour the next day, and then 15 minutes the third day, and then miss it on the fourth day, and then again 6 hours on it. Doesn't work. It's counterproductive. It doesn't help. But kind of even if you do it, that's another important thing is the quality is more important than quantity. It's not that I sit 2 hours, but with thinking of everything else, including a 45 minutes nap in the middle. Then your 2 hours don't count. But even if it's like 15 minutes, but 15 minutes if I can switch off everything else and say, and that is very helpful actually, when you start your prayer or meditation, to tell yourself that for the next 10 minutes or 15 minutes or however long you want to practice, nothing in life is more important to me than my practice, or this prayer or japa. No other sound is more important to me than the power of the sound of my mantra. No other form is more important to me than the form of my chosen deity. If I can give this strong suggestion to myself that my very life depends on it. See, we understand the value of breathing, right? We know if I stop breathing, it ends. Can we bring that a kind of conviction that in the next 10 minutes, repeating my mantra or meditating is as important, perhaps even more important than breathing? Somehow, if we are able to convince ourselves that it's not just food, air and shelter and that's necessary for my survival, but a spiritual nourishment is equally important for my survival. Survival as a spiritual seeker. Well, physically people can survive. Not everybody meditates, not everybody prays. So we're not just talking about just barely physically surviving, but survival as a devotee, survival as a spiritual seeker. Then I will have to be convinced, at least intellectually or emotionally to begin with, that my practice of prayer and meditation are vitally important. They are not an optional practice. People say, I have no time to breathe, but they still breathe. We know breathing is not optional. Spiritual practice is not optional also. So that's something we can try to remind ourselves on this holy day. So, my prayers to all the teachers of the past, all the teachers of the present, and all the teachers of the future, from every part of the world, from every generation, from every tradition, that may their grace, their wisdom, their love fill the hearts of all of us, so that we can all make progress in spiritual life and make our own life blessed, bring that joy and peace in our own life, and be able to share that joy and peace and wisdom to the people around us. Om Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagatgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhur Muhu. We bow down to Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother again and again.